Firstly, we're going to be coming to our triple winner in the AM class, Lewis Mason for Aztec Racing, who really was unstoppable here at Montreal today. Before then moving on to the Pro-Am class for SOL Next Gen Gold's Lewis Delmont, who had two top fives in races 1 and 2 in class, only then to come home for his first ever Pro-Am win, and with it as well his first ever overall podium as well. And then we'll be coming to Sammy Ariba, the Quartermass Motorsport AM driver, who whilst he had a difficult race 1 and 2, he absolutely delivered when it mattered most in race number 3 and brought home a podium for his glory. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's come to our first interviewee, and it's going to be none other than Lewis Mason, who joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Lewis, and well, what can we say other than in the AM class today, you were absolutely unstoppable at Montreal. I mean, how's it feel to have taken 3 wins out of 3?
It feels really good. Going into the race, I was just hoping to score as many points as possible, and Jonathan Collins had told me that he wasn't going to be racing today, and I'd like to try and get third in AM, and currently he's third, so as much as I can outscore him would be awesome. So just trying to do it as much as possible, and then just race 1, everything went right. Chose the wets, and they were fine for the first half of it, and then the second half was just trying to make sure that I let the quicker drivers through, but not the people I was fighting in class.
Well, a very sensible approach there. I do like the fact you immediately gave us that insight of the fact that you are in that rivalry for third place, the AM Championship, with Jonathan Collins, who wasn't here on the grid today, like you say. But let's wind the tape back a little bit and start off with qualifying. Now, practice in the build-up to the race, we did see a little bit of rain for a brief period, and that soaked the circuit. But as qualifying went on, we saw the circuit drying. Some drivers opted to go from the wet to the dry. Others stayed on the wet because they felt as though it was the right tire at the time. Where did you find yourself in all of that?
Well, the practice yesterday was pretty similar, and I chose the wets yesterday, and it was working for the first half of the race. I think I was battling with some of the pro-ams yesterday, which was fun. And so I thought, well, there's not much different that can go wrong today. And so I decided to take the gamble. I was only starting sixth, so it wasn't like I was battling for any podiums or anything, just trying to see how it would go. And then everyone else just seemed to not as good starts as me, and I managed to go past them all. I think I was catching up to some of the pro-ams by turn 1.
Well, definitely seem to work out for yourself. And having started P35 and qualified P6 in the class, we saw you make a lot of progress early on in race number 1. I mean, there were a couple of instances as well up front, but you seemed unperturbed by it. But at what point did you realise that, you know what, you were leading in the AM class, and also you had your teammate William Kurtler behind you in P2?
Yeah, it was when Dylan Mystery had said to me halfway around lap 1, he was like, "Oh, Lewis, by the way, I think you're in the lead of AM." And that kind of put a bit of panic into me, because usually when I'm leading, I'll end up spinning or bottling it, whatever. That's just the running joke in the team. And so I was just literally focusing, especially for race 1 during the wet sort of conditions, just focusing on keeping it on the track. And having Will behind me was just a bit of reassurance.
Well, a little bit of reassurance to your teammate. It's always good to have that, no doubt about it. But then moving towards the end of that race, there was a bit of pressure perhaps coming up behind it from some of your rivals, albeit they never quite got close. And in the end, you led home a 1-2. I mean, just take us through how that must have felt for yourself and also for Will. It's very rare we see a team achieve a 1-2 in any of the classes. We saw it in Knockhill for Track Scotland twice, but today we've seen it for yourselves in race 1. I mean, you guys must have been absolutely bouncing up and down.
Yeah, we were really happy with it. I mean, it's not usual that. I mean, sometimes we're up the front, sometimes we're not. Gabriel's been doing quite good this season. I know he's in the fight for the lead of the championship, but me and Will are like in and around sort of the top 3 sometimes. But yeah, it was really nice for us to both get 1-2.
Oh, definitely. And then going into race number 2, we saw a great start from both yourself and Will, but it looked as though as the race went on, it was going to be your race to lead. And of course, Will then did fall back a bit. We did see some growing pressure, however, behind you from none other than Craig Tillerson. Were you worried about that?
A little bit. I mean, Craig's a good driver. There's no denying that. That's why he was where he was. But yeah, it was mainly just focusing on if I could stay on the track, then as long as he doesn't get past me, then I've won again. So being in P1 just helped out with that a lot. I don't think I had exactly really good pace in the dry. I think I was just helped out by race 1 being wet. I think that helped a lot this race.
And I do have to ask, with regards to helping hands, there were a couple moments where Craig was getting quite close, and we did see a pro or a pro-am suddenly segue the way between the two of you. Did that just put a brief smile on your face, thinking, you know what, Craig's just been pushed back slightly, I don't have to worry for this lap?
Every time I saw a pro or pro-am coming, I was like braking a little bit extra, not too much to like cause a crash or anything, but just enough to back him off slightly towards the pro-am so then they could get in between. So I could get a pro-am or pro in between, and it just gave me a bit of extra help. And then try and let them through on one of the straights and not through a corner.
Well, that's absolutely fair. A classic touring car tactic, no doubt about it. And I'm sure Craig would have been on the other end thinking to himself, you know what, he's backing me up, but that's the way it does go in the NXTCC. And then coming on to race number 3, I mean, you already had 2 wins in the bag, and I can imagine you must have been ecstatic. Then race 3, you're starting P27, and it's another great start. And before we know it, you've already opened up a gap. But there's one problem. There's a fast-charging Audi RS3 in the hands of Sammy Ariba behind you.
Yeah, Sammy was catching quite quickly, and then it got to about halfway through the race, and I'm not sure whether he'd like burnt out his tires or whatever, but the gap was starting to like stay about the same. But definitely for those first few laps, when I saw the gap just slowly going away and him catching up, I was thinking to myself that he'd overtake me. But at the end of the day, I was just happy to have got 2 wins over 2 wins in AM already, and just a third made it even better.
Well, without a doubt, making it 3 wins out of 3, not just 2 out of 3, is something incredible. We rarely see it in any of the classes, but a well-deserved trio of wins. And with that, it does move you now into P3 in the AM standings provisionally. So you've got to your mark, you're ahead of Jonathan Collins, and it even actually moves you quite close to your teammate Gabriel Yilmaz. There's only now 50 points between the two of you. I mean, you're setting your sights for P3, but surely you've also got to be thinking, if you can carry this on in the final 3 rounds of the championship, could there be the possibility of taking the crown?
Honestly, whatever comes of it, the best. I mean, there's 3 races left. Anything can happen in those 3 races. I could have a terrible 3 races like the rest of the season. So as long as I can score as many points as possible, then obviously try and do what's best for the team as well. If me and Gabriel can both get a 1-2 in AM, then that would be brilliant.
Well, it's all to see and all to play for, and of course we do have an all-new venue next week, which is going to be the host for round number 8, because we're heading to Thruxton for the first time. How are you feeling for the UK's fastest circuit?
When this iRacing season started, the Clio Cup was at Thruxton, and I did that to sort of get an idea of how the track went, because I'd never raced there before, and it really helped out. I think the track next week's going to be a lot of fun, and I think there's going to be a lot of good action, especially for my Sams.
Well, we definitely look forward to it, and look forward to seeing what you're able to achieve given the momentum you've taken from Montreal today. But just before we do let you go, Lewis, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Obviously, Will in race 2 helping out with getting the first win, and then just the pros and pro-ams that were helping just keep the gap sort of a distance between me and second.
Well, Lewis, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room this evening. Congratulations once again on a phenomenal achievement to make it 3 wins out of 3, and to do so in quite a commanding manner, no doubt about it. I mean, it sets you now on course for P3 in the AM Championship and gives you the chance to take on the top 2. What will you be able to do at Thruxton, we look forward to seeing. But until then, have a fantastic rest of your evening, and thank you for joining me once again.
Thanks a lot, Paul.
So hearing there from our first interview, Lewis Mason, and I think you can hear it in his voice, whereby the fact he's very proud of what he's achieved, but I don't think the penny's dropped quite what he's been able to do. I think it's one of those moments, it's whereby he's now realising just how big a result today has been. 3 wins out of 3, and well, what a way to do it. Storming into lead in race number 1 with a brilliant start, and also with what was a bit of chaos for his rivals up front who fell out the running order, and by the end of lap 1, just charging into the distance. It wasn't without pressure in all 3 races, it must be said, albeit in race number 1 it came from his teammate William Kurtler, and in the end the 2 held station for a 1-2 finish. But in races 2 and 3 it was Craig Tillerson and Sammy Ariba respectively who chased him down. But when the pressure came to it, Lewis Mason, whether through backing up his rivals into the traffic coming up behind, or alternatively just maintaining the gap, he really was the man destined for great things today, and it was all to see. But could he be destined for greater things at Thruxton? Well, that is the big question that we all would love to have the answer to, but we've got to wait until next week for it.